Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. When we look around the world, it's super easy to focus on theological boundaries and all the distinct differences between religions. But today, we're taking a completely different approach. We're going to focus on the shared roots behind faiths. We'll map out 20 different belief systems, trace their origins, and see how these seemingly unique branches actually grow from the exact same historical and philosophical soils. It's kind of like looking at a giant puzzle. Think about this for a second. Right now, over 7 billion people on Earth believe in something bigger than themselves. 7 billion. That is a staggering number. Yet almost none of them agree on what that something actually is. I mean, we've got everything from one God to no God, from a single life to endless rebirths. The variety is just immense. But as we explore what these groups really believe, you're going to see they share some absolutely incredible similarities.
So to really wrap our heads around these 20 belief systems, we're going to group them by their shared geographic and philosophical roots. Today, we're acting as cultural historians. We'll move through the ancient foundations, into the Eastern family tree, over to the Abrahamic lineage, look at syncretic and modern paths, and finish up with one shared human quest. Let's get into it.
Starting off with part 1, the ancient foundations, where it all began. If we look really closely at early human spirituality, we see this profound recognition of a soul in nature. Take animism, which is likely the oldest belief system in human history. It literally predates organized religion entirely. The core idea? Everything, trees, rivers, animals, even the wind, has a spirit worth respecting. It's the bedrock beneath indigenous beliefs all over the world. Now compare that descendant of this worldview, Shintoism, Japan's native religion. It doesn't have a single founder or a holy book, but it's built entirely around kami, these spirits believed to inhabit nature and ancestors. It's basically a localized, organized extension of that ancient animistic root. Now, as organized religion evolved, a totally fascinating shift happened in ancient Persia that would literally change global theology forever. Think about concepts like a final judgment, heaven, and hell. A lot of us feel like they've just always been part of the major global faiths, right? But where did those specific ideas actually come from? Well, it turns out Zoroastrianism planted the very seeds of final judgment and cosmic struggle that heavily influenced the later Abrahamic faiths. Founded in ancient Persia, it's actually one of the oldest religions still practiced today. The whole core of it is this massive cosmic struggle between a good creator god named Ahura Mazda and an opposing force of chaos called Angra Mainyu. And the real kicker, humans have to choose sides through their own free will. Scholars actually point to this specific faith as the shared root for the concepts of heaven and hell that would later just absolutely bloom in the Middle East. Moving on to part 2, the Eastern family tree, cycles, harmony, and action. Okay, a defining characteristic of several major Eastern faiths is that they share the exact same starting line, a universe governed by a cycle of rebirth known as samsara. In this worldview, your life isn't just a single linear event, it runs on karma, which means your actions fundamentally shape your next life. But here's where it gets interesting. While these faiths share this foundational root, they differ completely on how to actually escape that cycle. Let's compare these paths side by side. First, Hinduism, the oldest major faith still practiced. It features thousands of gods, like Vishnu and Shiva, but many view them as expressions of one underlying reality called Brahman. For Hindus, the ultimate goal isn't a physical heaven, it's moksha, completely breaking free from the rebirth cycle. Then, sharing that exact same geographic root, we have Buddhism. Founded by Siddhartha Gautama, it actually places no god at its center. Instead, it teaches that suffering comes from craving. The goal here is nirvana, achieved by following the eightfold path to release attachment. And finally, Jainism. It shares the whole concept of karma, but takes it to its absolute furthest extreme. Devout Jain monks practice radical nonviolence, sometimes literally sweeping the ground ahead of them to avoid stepping on insects. All of that just to avoid accumulating the karma that keeps them trapped. So, 3 distinct paths, all from one shared root. Moving eastward to ancient China, we find another shared philosophical root, but this one is focused more on energy and society rather than rebirth. Taoism introduced this concept of the Tao, or the way, the natural flow underlying the universe. The absolute core teaching here is Wu Wei, which translates to effortless action. Now, that doesn't mean just sitting around being passive. It's about aligning with life's natural rhythm instead of fighting it. It's valuing harmony and balance over control. We can really clearly see the cross-pollination in Chinese philosophy here. Just contrast Taoism's cosmic harmony with Confucianism's strict societal harmony. While Taoism is all about aligning with the universe's natural flow, Confucianism, which was shaped by Confucius over 2.5 millennia ago, functions way more as a moral and social philosophy. No gods, no afterlife doctrine. Instead, it focuses heavily on how we treat each other. It's all about respect for parents, elders, and leaders, with education acting as the foundation of society. Two very different ways to find balance, growing right side by side.
All right, part 3, the Abrahamic lineage, the descendants of Abraham. Tracing this specific lineage, it all begins with Judaism, which has about 15 million followers today. It's centered on a covenant between God and Abraham's descendants, following the Torah with the belief that the Messiah is still to come. Now, from that exact same root sprouted Christianity, which is currently the world's largest religion with 2.4 billion followers. Christianity introduced Jesus as the divine Son, who was crucified and resurrected to pay for humanity's sins, a faith that later splintered into the Catholic, Protestant, and Orthodox branches we see today. And then we see Islam, with 1.9 billion followers. They worship the exact same God, Allah, which is just Arabic for God, but they revere Muhammad as God's final prophet who received the Quran. 3 global giants, billions of people, all tracing their lineage back to Abraham.
Now, what is truly fascinating here is how these sibling faiths view the exact same historical figure completely differently. It really highlights their distinct theological paths. In Christianity, Jesus is the divine center, the resurrected savior. In Islam, Jesus is highly respected as a major prophet, but he is explicitly not considered divine, nor the final prophet. And in Judaism, Jesus is simply not recognized as the Messiah. It is a perfect example of how one shared historical timeline can branch off into profoundly different belief systems. But of course, this lineage didn't just stop growing. It kept branching out into new interpretations over the centuries. For example, in the 1830s in New York, Mormonism was founded by Joseph Smith. It introduced the Book of Mormon, translated from golden plates, and taught that humans can eventually attain godhood themselves. Then there are the Jehovah's Witnesses, a Christian offshoot believing in a limited heaven and a paradise earth for faithful followers, and they're well known for avoiding blood transfusions and most holidays. And check this out, in 1930s Jamaica, Rastafarianism developed. Deeply connected to a historic diaspora, it views the Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie as a divine figure, holds Africa as sacred, and actually treats cannabis as a spiritual sacrament for meditation. Same roots, entirely new branches. This brings us to part 4. Syncretic and modern paths, the great convergences. Here is where we see a deliberate blending of spiritual DNA. Take a look at Sikhism, founded about 500 years ago in India by Guru Nanak. It brilliantly bridges the concept of one formless God with this teaching of radical equality. I mean, feeding strangers is considered the highest form of worship. Then there's the Baha'i Faith from 1800s Iran, which explicitly unites almost all the roots we've talked about today. They believe Moses, Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad were all prophets of the exact same God. And Caodaism, founded in 1920s Vietnam, it literally mixes East and West. It blends Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, recognizing figures like the author Victor Hugo right alongside Jesus and Buddha as spiritual messengers. How amazing is that?
And as we roll into the modern era, totally new frameworks for spiritual growth emerge. In 1800s France, Spiritism popped up, based on Allan Kardec's writings, teaching that spirits communicate with the living and that we go through reincarnation for moral growth. It's actually massive in Brazil today. In 1838 Japan, a woman named Nakayama Miki founded Tenrikyo, teaching that suffering comes from negative habits. She called them mental dust, which need to be swept away through prayer. And then there's Scientology, founded in 1954 by L. Ron Hubbard, which teaches individuals are immortal beings called thetans, pursuing spiritual growth through auditing with an e-meter.
Finally, part 5. One shared human quest. Billions searching for meaning.
So whether people are sweeping the ground to protect insects, facing Mecca to pray, seeking harmony with the Tao, or looking to the stars, they're all just branches of the exact same human family tree. No matter what you believe, or even if you don't believe in anything at all, I want to leave you with this final thought. Perhaps the greatest shared root among all of us is simply the search itself. Because, understanding how others see the world is for sure